everybody can also try to log in into their AWS account. I'm also logging in. Once I'll be finished, I'll tell you. I'll share my screen. We'll start. Okay, so I hope you guys are able to see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. So now, whenever you guys log in into any AWS account for the very first time or whenever, so you get to see this type of a portal. Okay. So this is the, we can say, console. We call it console from AWS Management Console, right? Some people call it AWS Portal as well. Okay. So here, this is the place where you get to see all the services and everything. So when you log in into an AWS account, there are two ways to log in into an AWS account. One is through an IAM user, and second is through root user. So what is the difference between a root user and IAM user? Anyone? Anyone has any idea about it? George, Joseph, Tajuddin, please see. Any one of you have any idea about it?
Yes, the root is supposed to be basically the account owner um, with overall administrative ownership of the account. And from the root, we can leverage that account to provision the IAM accounts, which could be given different level of privileges. But the root is the owner, as the name indicates.
Yes, that's true. You can call it like an administrator, or you can call it as the owner of the account, as Joseph has mentioned. That's absolutely correct. So when you create your own AWS account and when you're trying to log in, right? So the login URL is like portal.aws.amazon.com. Here you go and you start typing your email address and you type your password. So that is the way to log in as a root user. But when you're logging in as an IAM user, you need to provide 12-digit account ID. So what is that 12-digit account ID? So what happens? You create a root user, and through root user you can create multiple users as well. What a use case. So let's suppose you create a user XYZ and you put the password XYZ. Right? Now to segregate that, okay, there are multiple AWS accounts. To which AWS account I'm trying to communicate or I'm trying to log in. So then you have to specify the 12-digit account ID. So this is the account ID, which is unique for every AWS account ID. So if you guys would check in your machines or in your portal, this account ID will be different for everyone. I hope everybody is able to see this.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the 12-digit unique account ID. Okay, that's about account ID. Here you have your username, then you have account, organization, service quotas, billing and cost management, security credentials, everything you can manage about your account. If you have any, or let's suppose if you're working in an organization, you have the organization account. And in that organization account, if you have linked multiple AWS accounts, right, so you can manage all of that from here. Okay, if I'll create an organization, AWS organizations enables you to centrally manage and consolidate all of your AWS account in the AWS or in the AWS cloud. Okay, so this is what it means when we talk about the organization. Service quotas is that when you have default quota. Quotas are like limitations you have to create. Let's suppose if you can only create, there's a service name as VPC. You can only create five VPC. So if you want to increase the quota, the limit, right? You have to make a service request, the service quota request, right? So let's suppose if you search for any service, let's suppose I say VPC, right? If I have to see the, you can say See, IP for CIDI block per VPC 5, NAT gateway per availability zone only 5, right? New ACS per VPC 25, whatever is there. There is some limitations to every kind of a service. So if I want to increase the capacity, the elastic IP address quota per NAT gateway, so that particular thing you can request to increase a limit at account level. So right now, don't get confused about it. I'm just trying to give a idea that what you can see on a AWS console. So this is where you can increase the limitation of your services. Let's suppose you have a car and it is only allowed for you to drive 10 kilometers because your boss has set in, we can say, condition that okay, after this it won't work. I will stop it through the GPS. So the same way, AWS also has a limitation that okay, you can only create five VPC. Okay, but then you think, oh, no, I want more VPCs to be created. Then you make a service quota request, and that quota request will be from here. Okay, billing and cost management. Every month, a bill will be generated for you guys, so you can go to the this billing and cost management. Go to bills and check your, we can say, estimated cost for this month, or if you want to check for the billing period July 2024. Let's suppose my bill was 18.72, right? And if I check here, 16.96 was paid to the this one, North Virginia. If you see this particular thing was running for this much hours, then it charged this much. There was some block storage which charged $5.44, $5.42, right? And everything included, okay, 18 US dollars. So here you can pay the bill, you can download the bill, you can do everything from here. And in security credentials, you are particularly in the this particular segment is something different. I will help you understand. It's with the root user. If you want to set up a MFA device, you can do that. Now, what is MFA device? How many of you have enabled the MFA device in your AWS accounts?
I have.
You have. George, Lindsay, Tajuddin, have you guys done it? Okay. Tajuddin, you?
I don't understand. Question, sir.
Do you have the multi-factor authentication on in your AWS account? It means when you log in into the AWS account, you have to enter the username, password. Then it asks you for the, we can say, 4 or 6 digit of generated code, random generated values, which you will see in your phone, and then you will enter to log in for a security purpose.
Yes.
Okay. So if you don't have, or if anybody doesn't have, or if anybody doesn't know how to do it, so what you have to do is you have to click on the username which you see on the top right here. Just a second. Can you mute yourself, Tajri? Please. Okay. So if anybody doesn't have any idea how to do it, just click on security credentials and scroll down and click on assign an MFA device. So if you will assign an MFA device, so it will allow you to, we can say, make the two-factor authentication enabled, right? So now what will be the next job when you click on assign MFA device? You have to download any authenticator on your phone device. You have to say authenticator app. So it's preferred that you should use the Google authenticator. If you want to use Microsoft authenticator or if there is any other authenticator available in the market, if you want to use that, you can use that as well. Okay. The next thing we see is this in Virginia, North Virginia, US East Ohio, North California, Oregon region, Asia Pacific, we can say Mumbai, Asia Pacific Osaka, Asia Pacific Seoul, right? Sydney, Tokyo, Central, Frankfurt. So what all these things are? Anyone? What all these things are? What are AWS regions? Does anybody have?
Yes. These are regions where, yeah, I mean, accounts are hosted, if I can use that word. For instance, the Northern Virginia US East 1 is where I'm located, and it's the closest to me. And so you have your availability zone within that region, and then you have Ohio and the others, and you have US West and that kind of setup.
Okay, that's really nice. So if I have to break down and if I have to make you guys understand through the real life example, so I would say think of AWS region as a big city, like big city as in any big city. So each city, as in each region, is a separate place where you can store and manage your data services. Let's suppose in each city you can manage your data and you can store your data, right? For example, there might be a New York City, right? And there might be a city San Francisco, so they are geographically distant from each other, right? They are far from each other little. So to ensure that something happens, if something happens in one city, your data and services in another city are still safe and accessible, right? So if you have data in North Virginia, right, and so the US East Ohio, or you can say the other region, will make sure your data is safe. So AWS automatically takes the backup of your data so that it won't get lost, right? Then we have availability zones as well. Within each city, means within each region, there are several neighborhoods. So that is known as, we can say, availability zone. So each neighborhood is in, we can say, isolated place with its own power, cooling, and networking. So these neighborhoods are designed to be independent from each other. So if one neighborhood has a problem, the others are still up and running. This way, you can spread your services across the different neighborhood to avoid the downtime. So if I have to ease this process, so think of a city, or let's suppose think of a region. Let's take an example, North Virginia. In North Virginia, you can store your data. So now, how can you store your data? How can you create that? Because you have the data center there. And when you click on that, okay, I want to create resources in US East, not Virginia. Okay, so you select that. So it is trying to connect, or it will try to make a remote access with the, we can say, data center of North Virginia. And in North Virginia also there are multiple, we can say, data centers which are present, because if something goes wrong with one data center, so it can talk to the other one which is present. Okay, so now if I have to talk technically about, we can say, AWS region. So AWS region is a geographical area that contains multiple isolated data centers, right? Referred to as availability zones. So each region is a separate, independent geographic area designed to provide the high availability for your data, right? So regions are designed to be isolated from each other to ensure that the data and application remain operational even if there are issues in one region. They also help comply with regulatory and compliance requirement by allowing the data to stored in specific geographical locations. So examples of AWS regions, we know North Virginia, US East one, right? EU West, we can say one is Ireland, and AP Southeast one is Singapore, right? So these are the types of, we can say, AWS regions which we are able to see. And also, an availability zone is a distinct isolated location within a region. Each AZ, or you can say availability zone, is made up of one or more data center, each with its own power, own cooling, own networking, and own infrastructure. So AZs are designed to be independent of each other, meaning that they are isolated from failures in other AZs. So what is the meaning of, isolated and for failures? So let me share my screen and help you draw the diagram and make you understand. But before that, if anybody has any question, is it confusing or is it understandable? Anyone? Anyone has any confusion with this one? George, Joseph, Tajuddin, Leslie.
No, you are pretty clear. Thank you.
Okay, that's nice. Wait a minute. But still, I'll help you guys understand again because I know if somebody will have any problem. So, okay. So, this is my AWS. Let's suppose this is the AWS account which I'm using. So, we have seen about the AWS region, right? Just a second. So, now I have the AWS region, right? So how do I explain AWS region? Is let's suppose this is North Virginia, and here in North Virginia, this is availability zone one, means it is a data center where all the machines, all the hardware is there, right? The server racks, electricity power which is using, cooling systems, networking, the whole infrastructure, everything is here. Then there is AZ2. So they are independent from each other in one region. It will make sure that if something goes wrong, let's suppose there is a fire in this particular server, so it won't affect the other servers. So that's how, if you have spread the data across multiple regions, multiple availability zones, you can have your data backed up every time. Even if something goes wrong with the one availability zone, your data is safe in the multiple availability zones. I hope you guys are able to relate with this information.
Yes.
Okay, that's really nice. Now, let's talk about some of the services of AWS. Okay, now, how many of you have heard any service in AWS? Any name which you guys have heard most of the time, right? Anyone?
We have the IAM, we have S3, we have EC2, we have Elastic Load Balancer, we have VPC, CloudFront, CloudWatch, CloudFormation, and the rest.
Okay, that's really nice. So now, let's start with the understanding of the services, right? That what kind of services are there, right? And what kind of, we can say, things we can perform. Okay. So there are category of services. So if I have to check the category of services, how can I do that? Anyone?
Can you please take the question again?
Sorry,
I did not get the question.
I'm saying there are different types of services which is being categorized. Let's suppose there are storage services, there are compute services. So if you want to check that, you okay, first of all, this is the setting options where you can, let's suppose, visual mode for your browser. If you want dark one, if you want light one, you can choose from here. Let's suppose your browser default, right? Whatever language is your browser using, use that. So you can change the information. If you have to talk to the support center of AWS, if you want to speak with the expert help, right? So you can do that from here. It's very easy. And this is notification area. If any notification will be there, it will be here. This is the terminal, or you can say command line interface for the AWS. Okay, so this is Cloud Shell. Here you can run commands, you can perform tasks, right? But the most important thing for us is to check here this one, services. When you click on services, you see something like this, right? If I click on all services, that will show me all these services. If I click on view all services, okay. So this is the category of services which are available. So let's see how many categories are there. There is compute, there is quantum technologies, security, identity and compliance, management and governance, containers, storage service, database service, media service, cloud financial management service, front-end web and mobile service, application interface service, migration and transfer service, right? You see, there are different types of services. It means that is a category, or you can say parent information of a, we can say, of your services, right? So now let's talk about the storage service. I'm sorry, the compute service first of all. How many of you have an idea about compute now? I have helped you understand about computing. So what is compute? Anyone? Anyone? Please
Yeah,
guide
I
us.
think on the on the compute services we have EC2, then we have Lambda,
No, no, no. That is there. But what is compute? What is the meaning of compute?
Computers like instances, computers, instances in the cloud or computers in the cloud.
Okay. Okay. That's really nice. So I hope everybody agrees with that. Okay. I think everybody is agreeing with that. Okay. So now compute is, let's suppose, which is like your whole infrastructure. You will have a hardware, right, where you can configure networking, where you can perform, we can say, storage services, right, and where you can perform various we can say tasks. Now, if we have to start with any service, we just have to click on that and we can start creating those particular services, right? So now this account which we are using is free account. So how many of you are using free account right now?
I am.
Okay. So most of us are using the free tier account. But let's suppose if we are using free tier account, but still in free tier also there are limitations that okay, you can only create for like let's say if your instance is on and running for multiple hours, right? So it will start charging you the money, right? So for that you will create a budget. Now what is the budget? Anyone? In general, I'm asking what is the budget?
It's a tool to track your spend.
Yes, and also it will allow you to, let's suppose, that okay, set a limitation that okay, this much money I can spend this much, right, in this month. Let's say use a template. You want to use a template, so we will say zero spend budget. Create a budget that notifies you once your spending limit exceeds the $0.01, which is above the AWS free tier limits. So we want that okay, we are right now using AWS free tier account. If our account is exceeding the limit of free tier, so we would like to take some action, right? So let's say my zero spend budget, or if I will give a name, let's suppose ping me when you are high. I know it sounds a little sarcastic, but yes, high means the billing is high. Okay, so we need to understand that. Ping me when you are high. Right now, here you have to give the email address, right, of a user which should be getting notified whenever the limit is getting exceeded. Okay, so let us. You can put any email address here. You will be notified via email when any spend above 0. We can say 0.01 is incurred, right? So and then you click on create budget. So I hope you guys have understood about budgeting. So you guys can set this budget because it's very important for you guys as you are just started to learn about this AWS. So make sure you create a budget, okay? So that you don't have to go ahead and pay some money for using this. Is it understandable?
Yes. One thing I kind of discovered here with budget, if you decide to use, let's say, a support, let's say you have a business, a small business, and you use a support account, let's say $100 a month.
Okay.
Once it's time for you to cancel it, your IAM user cannot cancel it. Even though the IAM user can buy the service, you now have to go to the root account to to cancel that monthly subscription. Very funny business move they do there. Just a heads
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. That's also true. Okay. So here, once you've set the budget, once everything is done, right, then you can move ahead. Yeah. Joseph, you have created any budget or not?
Yes, I created a budget, but I think yes, I did. I created a budget.
You have created a budget, but has the same thing happened to you? Something like that?
Like budget overruns, yeah, it's happened before where I've had to go delete what's the underlying cause and then maybe increase the budget to about $5 or maybe $10. Yeah, it's happened to me before.
Okay, so
Uh,
you have exceeded the limit, right?
oh yeah, yeah, it's happened many times.
Yeah, yeah. It happened for me also. It happened like $18 last month. So it's
Yeah,
I mean, like
yeah,
if we have to run, or if sometimes we forget about it, so that
yeah.
happens.
Hmm.
But never mind, because sometimes we have to pay if we are learning, right?
Yes, yes.
I have another hack as well. That if you are using an AWS account and you try to reach out their support team, that I'm a
Yeah.
student, I was not aware that what to do and how can I do it. So it happened by mistake and I can't afford it. So sometimes you just have to be convincing. Your whatever you're sending them, it has to be very convincing. So they will, we can say, make it free for you. Okay,
Okay, cool.
they will not
I'll use
consider that
that.
risk. Yeah,
I'll
definitely.
use that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
That's a pro tip.
Yes. So here, when you go in the bottom, you see a security, identity, and compliance. That's the main thing which we want to do for the very first time when we have accessed. Now, because let's suppose here right now we are individuals who are going to use or access the, we can say, AWS account, so we can use the root account. But the best practice is you should have another user through which you can log in and perform the various tasks, because you can set the limitation that okay, yes, this particular user can only use this service and other services are not allowed for this particular user. Okay, so where can we perform all these things? There are so many things: AWS Artifact, Audit Manager, Certification Manager, Cloud HSM, right? So all these things are there, but we have to choose the service IAM, manage access to AWS resources. Okay, so let's see. So when you come here on the dashboard, so you see add MFA for your root user. Right now, I don't have any, we can say root user as a MFA because there are multiple people who are using this account. So I don't want to set up a MFA code, right? Root user has no active access keys. Access key and secret keys we are going to talk about in next upcoming lectures. So here you can manage users, roles, policies, identity providers, account settings, right? So I don't want to make it hectic. I just want you guys to understand about users today. In general, you know in computer language what is a user. Let's suppose if you're using Windows operating system and then I have asked you to log in into the account. So what you will do is you will enter a password and that will allow you to access the, we can say, operating system. Okay. Now, let's say I want to create a user. So let's say I'll click on create a user. I will give a username. Let's suppose, okay, this is a user which I want to create. There is a thing written here, provide user access to the AWS Management Console. What does that mean? If I don't click on this tick mark, what will happen? Anyone? Understand this term. I have just
You
explained.
enable it. Yes.
Sorry?
That is, you enable the access.
Yeah, you will be unable to access the assets or the resources, right? Because you won't be able to access the, we can say, AWS user through the management console. So if you want your user to be able to access the management console, so you can click on provide the user access to this management console, right? So if specify a user in the identity center, we recommend that you use identity center to provide console access to a person. With identity center, you can centrally manage your user access to the AWS account and cloud application. I want to create an IAM user. So I will say I want to create an IAM user. Okay. So I've chosen that I want to create an IAM user. Do you want to take the auto-generated password? I would say no. I want the custom password. So I will say custom password as let's say very, you can say, not a strong password, right? So, and then this option, user must create a new password at next sign in. Means, let's suppose I'm creating this user for George, for Joseph, or anybody else. So, if I click on this, so whenever you will receive this information from me, the account ID, or you can say login URL, then I will give you the username and password. So, when you log in with that information, the first thing it will do is it will ask you to change the password, right? Because I have the password right now with me. So you would like to change the password. So if I don't tick on this one, then you won't have permission to sign, we can say change the password for yourself. Okay. So I will say, okay, user must, but I don't want right now that user should reset the password. It's fine with this password only. Now, the next thing is permissions. Users should be able to create permissions, right? Let's suppose I will be able to attach some permissions. So add user to some group. No, no. You can create groups as well, and you can assign permissions to those groups, and then you can add that user into the group. No, we don't want that. Do we want to copy the permissions from the other user, which is there? No, we don't want to do that as well. We want our own permissions to be set. We will say attach the policies directly. Yes, this is what we are looking for. So these are the AWS managed permissions. So wherever here you are seeing type AWS managed means these are the we can say permission policies created by the AWS. But we can also create our own policy by clicking on create policy. But right now we would like to use the AWS managed policies only. So I will search here for administrator. And for this user, I want to give him the admin permission. So I will say administrator access and I click next. It will give me the review of whatever we have done till now. The name will be this. The console password is custom password, means you have set the password, so that will be the password. Required password reset? No, I don't want you to require change the password. Is there any permission summary? Yes, there is administrator access attached to the user. Okay, there are tags. What is tags? It's not compulsory, but tags are the key value pairs you can add to AWS resource to help your identity organize or search for the resources. Let's say I click on add new tag. I will say reason. I'll say for AWS practice with the birds. Okay. So if I come up in like let's suppose after a month or after 2 months, and I want to see that okay, why did I created this user? What was the need for me that I created this user? So I can check the tags if I have given any tags. That okay, this is the reason we have used last time. So you click on create user, then everything is created successfully. There is a sign in URL, there is username, and there is password, right? So if I show the password here, so this is the password, this is the username, this is. But let's suppose if I click on close here or cancel here or return to user list, so it won't be visible to me, right? I have to go and check manually. But what I can do is I can download the CSV file for me to have the information. Or if I want to give this particular information in email to you, let's suppose if I want to send it to anybody here, so I can choose this option to email with the sign-in instructions. So I think there's something wrong with this feature right now. Okay, or I will just download the USV file, CSV file. So when I download the file, it will contain all these three information in there. So I don't have to hassle too much. I can just send you the file so that you can access the AWS account. So this is what creating a user means in the AWS, right? We have created a user test. If I click on the user, I can manage all the things from here for this particular user. You can set the, you can say MFA for this one also. If you will enable here, so that your IAM user or your teammate can also be able to set up the MFA for their account as well, or for their user as well. So I hope is it that was understandable. It's just you are creating users or multiple users which has certain type of permission. Okay, let's suppose we have 5 users and we have 5 different types of jobs. Let's suppose Joseph will handle compute services, or Tajuddin will handle the we can say storage service, and somebody will handle the database, and another one handle the we can say networking part. So I want to create multiple users and assign only the required permissions to that. That okay, Joseph can only access this, and Tajuddin can only access that. Right. So that's the thing which you guys can do it here. If anybody has any question, any doubt regarding this, they can ask. Anyone? Anyone who has any doubt, or did you guys understood about IAM? Can we move forward?
Yes, it was clear. Thank you.
Okay, that's really nice. So IAM, as you can say, the full form of IAM is Identity and Access Management. So the name suggests about what users are, what user groups are. Let's suppose if you create a group, mm, project uh, data migration, right? And let's suppose there are multiple users which needed to be having same type of permissions, right? Let's suppose everybody should have administrator access. So instead of attaching those permissions manually to everyone, what I could do is I can add all the users into this particular group. So I have to only centrally give permissions. So let's say the after few days I have to change the permission, right? That, okay, yes, now I have to change the permission for everyone. Right? So you can centrally manage from here, right? That with administrator permissions also, I need to remove that, and all the users which are there in the group should only have the EC2 access service. We can say permission. Okay, that's how you can centrally manage. Otherwise, you have to go to every single account, click on that, and change the particular permissions. Okay, so that is the very basic about it. So if I have created the group, now which user you want to add here in this group? Not any user right now. What permission should be attached to the group? And you just click on create the user group. So I would not like to create the user group right now, but you can create it. It's very simple. It's very easy to use if you want to assign some permissions. Okay. So if anybody has any questions regarding anything in AWS, they can ask. Anyone? Any sort of questions. I think because we are starting for the very first time, so to process this knowledge about budgeting, about billing, right? You guys do research and try your hands on this one. Try to play around. Don't fear anything because it's anyways free tier account, right, which we are using. So try to make your hands, we can say, on any service which you like, right? Let's suppose I want to access IAM every time. So I have to search here. Instead, I can click on this favorites button and this particular thing will be displayed here. Just like these services, S3, EC2, RDS, IAM, right? So in this course, or we can say in this course, we are going to learn about compute service, networking service, data storage service, database service, right? Security and compliance service, monitoring service like CloudWatch, right? So we're going to look on all these services. So make sure you guys are ready and are ready to fly as well to perform various tasks in the we can say real life scenarios. Okay, but make sure you guys are practicing every day because right now you will be thinking that okay, I know how to do it, what to do it, but when I will take your test, then I know many of you will say, Harsh, how to do that, how to do that, and that will come only because if you won't practice. So what I want is the first focus should be on doing the practice. I hope everybody will be practicing this. Everybody will do the practice.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, because practice is very important. Okay, so I will share a few notes on, we can say, getting started with AWS and understanding about IAM, understanding about budget, understanding about billing, and everything. AWS regions, availability zones. So give me some time. I will share the notes on this one, and you guys can refer to those notes anytime you want. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So now we have an idea
Okay.
about the basic billing, basic IAM user, right? How to create a user. From tomorrow, we are going to start learning about EC2 instance, which is a compute service, which is how you create a virtual private server. So this service is known as EC2, right? And we what we do is we do the VPS. We create VPS, the virtual private servers for each other. If you want to host something, if you want to host website, so we are going to do some crazy projects as well on these resources. So we are going to launch a website using EC2. Has anybody ever launched any sort of website?
Yeah, I think I've done it. I've launched a static website.
Okay, what website you've launched?
A static website
Okay, using S3 or using EC2?
using EC2.
Using EC2. Okay, that's really nice. So we are going to also see how to we can say run a, we can say even the dynamic website also, even the static website also. How can we you take use of, we can say, web servers which are available in the market? Okay, we are going to do
Okay.
some we are going to do some crazy projects as well. So that will add in your resume. So make sure you guys are attentive, okay, in the next classes because we are going to do some crazy things, and that's how we are going to learn. Okay. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your time, guys. I will see you guys tomorrow.